What's up, guys? This is Riley Schaefer here. We'll be talking about if culture defines a person or not. Some may say that culture doesn't define a person, but if you really think about it, culture really does define a person. Culture defines you because depending on where you live, people will look at you and what you do in a certain way, and where you grow up really shapes you as a person and makes you who you really are because and living in a certain culture will define you because you have to live up to that culture and the people around you. And in the book The White Princess by Philippa Gregory, that took place in the Tudor time period, depicts a story about Elizabeth, who is the White Queen's daughter, and her marriage to Henry. And the culture that Elizabeth lives in shapes her and defines her in many different ways. The culture also defines other people in the book, like Henry Tudor, and Henry knows he must marry the princess of the enemy house when he picks up the crown from the field, and the people know that he must marry her, and that is a prime example of how the culture defines him. Because if they didn't want him to marry her, then he wouldn't end up marrying her because she's already married. And the problem with him marrying her is that she's still in love with Richard III, and the two people that are part of the two countries that have been divided by war now must get married. This is hard for the two cultures because they have been divided for almost 2 decades, but their culture defines them because they find a way to get married. Some people believe that culture does not define a person because a person does what they please to do instead of what they think they should do based on their culture. Not many people do things that are opposite of their culture. However, people do things that make them comfortable, and that isn't the opposite of what people in their culture do as well. It's like how animals adapt to their environment, which forces them to act a certain way. Humans adapt to their environment also, and this forces them to be a certain type of person. Another example of how culture defines a person is in their daily life and the types of clothes they wear. People dress a certain way depending on their social class, and back in the Tudor time period, people in the upper class wore silk, and the people in the lower class wore less valuable items such as wool. And they also lived in different types of houses depending on what class they were in. And this shows that depending on their culture, they wore a certain material, and that defined them and what culture they lived in. So, The White Princess by Philippa Gregory, that took place in the Tudor time period, depicts a story about Elizabeth, who is the White Queen's daughter, and her marriage to Henry, and how culture defines them. Thanks, everybody.